We have the first 3 games in the Women's Six Nations. There are top-of-the-table clashes in the URC, Premiership, Japan League 1 and Top 14. And this upcoming weekend, we have the return of the Sevens. Hello and welcome to the Rugby Roundup, March 26, 2025. My name is Big Mike, here at Big Mike Sports. Now let's talk some rugby. We have been a bit under the weather this week, so apologies if my voice sounds a little bit funny. On this week's episode, we have the opening round of the Six Nations for the women, with a couple of big blowouts and a nice tight game in Scotland. We also have club results from all of our favourite men's club competitions, kicking off after the Six Nations, everything except for Super Rugby Americas. Women's Super Rugby in Aotearoa and Australia is getting hot and heavy heading into our final rounds. And we look forward to the 7 Series being back in Hong Kong. But enough of all that. Let's get to the roundup. We are going to start in international action. There were no men's games last weekend, but there was the first round of the Women's Six Nations. This one started in Ireland, where it was Ireland versus France. This is Europe 2 and 3 going at it. This one finished Ireland 15, France 27. France got out to a 17-5 lead at half-time, and even with an early second-half red card, they held off the comeback and won. In the second game in Scotland, it was Scotland 24, Wales 21. In this one, both teams had red cards. At half-time, there was a 3-point lead to Scotland, 10-7. Wales came back and scored with a few minutes left, but could not catch up with the Scots, who won this one by 3. In the final game of the weekend, the Red Roses of England took on Italy. This one finished 38-5. It looks like a predictable blowout, but at halftime, this one was 33-5 to England, and they did not score again until the 78th minute. Although the foot was off that accelerator, Italy can be proud of the second half, and after that game, England do sit on top of the table. In other international women's games that I did see, Brazil are doing a small European tour. Last week they beat Portugal 19-12, and this week they lost to Spain 41-12. New little seggy we're going to add to the end of these, talking about the unbeaten and the winless. So far, the unbeaten international teams of note. The Georgia men's team are 5-5 this year. There are no other men's teams that are unbeaten, and England, France, and Scotland are all obviously unbeaten after that first round in the Six Nations. Winless international teams. Germany went 0-5 in the Rugby Europe Championship. Ireland, Wales, and Italy's women's teams all lost on the weekend, and the Welsh went 0-5 in the Six Nations. Now to club results. Let's kick off with the men. We will start in the URC, which had round 13 of 18, the first full round of URC for a few weeks. In Cardiff, Cardiff kept their top 8 spot intact with a 2017 victory over Lions. Glasgow, who have been sitting in second place for most of this competition, stayed there with a 28-25 win over Munster. Interesting fact about this game, Munster were leading 25-14 with just 13 minutes left before 2 converted tries for the Glaswegians. The Sharks somehow held on and bet Zebra 35-34, staying in the top 4 And it was a 74th minute converted try for the Sharks that got them over the line in this one. Benetton got a 21-18 victory over Edinburgh. Now, Edinburgh did get a red card at the 75th minute, and in the 78th minute, Benetton got their match-winning try. In one of my big three games from last weekend, it was Bulls taking on Leinster in South Africa. Leinster were up 20-18 and then gave away a penalty after 80 minutes. Could the Bulls get it? Of course they could. They're South African. They don't miss kicks. The Bulls got a 21-20 victory over Leinster. This is Leinster's first defeat in any competition in the 2024-25 season. The last two Leinster losses in the URC were in South Africa to the Bulls. Now, Scarlets took on Stormers, and the away team, the Stormers, won this one 29-17. Ulster sneaking closer to the top 8 with a 34-30 victory over Dragons. And in a nice high-scoring game to finish the round, Ospreys bet Connacht 43-40. Our top four are still our top four. Leinster far away ahead, 58 points top of the table, followed by Glasgow, the Bulls, and the Sharks. Then, on 35 points, we're looking at Cardiff, Munster 34, Ospreys and Stormers both on 33. And then, 9th through 13th are all between 30 and 32 points. It's nice and close looking at the bottom four of the top 8. Heading to France, the top 14, round 19 of 26. We started with a draw as La Rochelle and Castres had a 12-all draw. Clermont and Racine 92. Racine won this one with a 75th minute penalty for the 23-21 victory. Lyon bet my beloved Vannes, keeping them at the bottom of the table, 36-21. Pau Montpellier, 40-38. Well done, Pop. Stade Francais got a nice victory, 31-27 over the top four Bayonne. Toulon stayed in third place with a 40-19 victory over Perpignan. And in a big three match from last weekend, it was Bordeaux versus Toulouse, second versus first. And who won? The second place home team, Bordeaux, 32-24. They are just 1 point behind Toulouse on the table. It is Toulouse, Bordeaux, and Toulon, top three. Then a bit further away, we have Bayonne, Lyon, and Castres with 7th to 10th position, all chasing and hot on their tail. The English Premiership back. And we had a 33-0 victory, Leicester over Northampton, 39-15 Salé over Newcastle. Harlequins bet Saracens 23-12. Bristol dominated Exeter 52-38 and Bath 42-26 over third place Gloucester to stay top of the table. Not really any close games in the Premiership last weekend. We have Bath, Bristol, Leicester and Harlequins in our top four, with 5th to 7th being just 2 points behind. Japan League 1, Division 1, Week 12. The Honda Heat went down to the D-Rocks, scoring their second victory of the season, 39-31. Kubota Spears bet the Yokohama Cannon Eagles, 41-24. The Blue Rev stayed in the top four, with a 31-25 victory over Black Rams. Toyota Verblitz went down again, this time to the Mitsubishi Dynaboars, 31-22. Sun Goliath and Kobe Steelers, an 80th minute try, there we go, got the Kobe Steelers over the line, 39-37. And in the top of the table clash with an earlier draw in the season, second place, Brave Lupus bet Wild Knights 42-31 and have taken their spot on the top of the table. That is another team that has lost their mojo, only by a little. So our top six, we have Brave Lupus, Wild Knights, the Kubota Spears, the Blue Revs, the Kobe Steelers, and somehow holding on, the Cannon Yokohama Eagles. But they are a fair few points behind and could be caught if their downward momentum continues. The top 3 are all within 3 points on the table now. Round 6 of Super Rugby Pacific. It was the Chiefs beating Moana Pacifica in the opener, 50-35. This one was 43-7 to the Chiefs at half-time. Moana Pacifica having a great second half, even though the Chiefs did not need to do much to win it. The Highlanders went down to the Reds in Dunedin. This one was 29-23 to the Reds. Last-minute penalty got the Highlanders a bonus point. My beloved Blues, let's not talk about it. They lost to the Crusaders 42-19. They've won 1 out of 6. The Waratahs beat the Brumbies 28-23. The top 3 teams in Australia, the Brumbies, Waratahs and Reds, are all looking good, as are the Force, who had a 52-15 victory over the Drua. In the 6 games that have been New Zealand versus Australian teams, it is 3 for 3 so far this season. Top of the table, we have the Chiefs on 22 points, but they have played 6 games. We'll be having a bye this weekend. They are followed by the Crusaders, the Reds, the Waratahs, and the Brumbies, who have all had a week off. In 6th place, another team that has played 6 is the Force. All 4 Australian teams are sitting in the top 6. To round 6 of the MLR, the defending champs, New England Free Jacks, went down again, 28-14 to Old Glory DC. Anthem RC could not get the victory against the Houston Sabercats. This one finished 46-45 in the 78th minute. A converted try put Anthem on top, and a last-minute penalty won it for Houston. Anthem are still winless, and the Cats have had 4 wins in a row. Nola Gold went down 24-31 to RFC LA. The Seattle Seawolves 27-30 went down to the Utah Warriors, and San Diego Legion remain undefeated with a 31-12 victory over the Miami Sharks. In the West, we are led by San Diego, followed by Houston, Utah, and RFC LA. In the East, Chicago tops it, followed by DC, New England, and Miami. There were no games in Super Rugby Americas. Super Rugby Opiki Round 4, Matatu kept the Poa winless on 0 points on the table with a 43-24 victory. And Chiefs Manoa went down for the second time this season to the Blues women, 36-21. With 2 games left, the Blues are on top on 19 points. Matatu have 14. Chiefs are behind them with 7. They need 2 good victories and a couple of results to go their way. In Super W, this was round 4 action. The Reds got a victory, 26-22 over the winless Brumbies. And the Force got into the top 4 with a 47-31 victory over the Drua. With 1 round left, the Drua have the bye this week and are sitting on 9 points in second. The Waratahs are on top on 10. The Reds on 8 points, and the Force with 7. Now, the unbeaten club teams. Leinster has taken themselves off this list, so the only 2 unbeaten club teams left are the Blues women with 4 from 4 and San Diego Legion with 5 from 5. Winless club teams, thankfully none in those European competitions, but we do have the Hurricanes Poa in Super Rugby Opiki 0-4. The Brumbies women 0-2 and 1 draw. And Anthem RC, who have lost all 5 games. Now it's Big Mike time. If you'd like me to talk about any teams, any games, any competitions, let me know. Big Mike Sports NZ on Instagram, Big Mike Sports on YouTube, or under any of the links or the episodes. It'll be great to hear your thoughts here at Big Mike Sports. Oh, I like that. Before we get into the preview, fun Big Mike fact for the week. In last week's scan, the baby had a penis. So, he'll be eligible for the All Blacks, the Wallabies, the Flying Fijians, and through his maternal grandfather, Austria. Alright, let's look ahead to this week. International games. There are no men's games this week. In the Women's Six Nations, we have France versus Scotland. This is two unbeaten teams colliding in La Rochelle. Wales versus England. Can the Red Roses match the dominance of their men from 2 weeks ago with that 68-14 victory over the Welsh? And Italy versus Ireland. This is two teams looking for their very first win of the year. Now to all of the club games this week. Round 14 of 18 in the URC. Edinburgh versus Dragons. Edinburgh sitting in the 11th spot hoping to catch the top 8. Ulster just outside the 8 and 9th taking on the 8th place Stormers. That one is very vital. 3rd place Bulls looking to continue their momentum against near bottom of the table Connacht. Connacht in 12th are taking on fellow Irish squad Munster, who had that loss and have dropped down to 6th place. In a Welsh clash, we have the Scarlets in 14th versus the Ospreys in 7th. In the big one in the URC this week, it is the Sharks versus Leinster, 4th versus 1st in South Africa. Benetton hoping to climb back into that top 8 against the 5th place Cardiff. And the 2nd place Glasgow Warriors taking on the 13th Lions. In top 14, we are round 20 of 26. Top of the table Toulouse hoping to get back on that horse against Montpellier versus Stade Francais. 10th versus 11th. It is a bottom of the table clash. It is my beloved Vannes versus Perpignan. There's only 2 points between them at the bottom of the table. How the top 14 works, the bottom team directly gets relegated. 13th place goes into a playoff. This one is important team. We have 8th versus 9th as Clermont take on La Rochelle. Not too much longer before these teams might get knocked out of this competition. 4th taking on 5th, Bayonne versus Lyon. Another top 6 game with Castries taking on the 3rd place Toulon. And 2nd place Bordeaux. Can they continue that momentum against the 12th placed Racing 92? In the Premiership, round 13 of 18. Saleh Sharks taking on Northampton. Bottom of the table clash, it is Exeter taking on Newcastle. Top 4 clash as the top of the table Bath take on the 4th place Harlequins. Gloucester, who have just snuck out of that top 4, are taking on the 2nd place red-hot Bristol Bears. And it's 3rd taking on 7th as Leicester take on Saracens. Heading to the land of the rising sun with Japan League 1 Division 1 round 13 of 18. Suntory Sun Goliath are sitting in 8th, hoping to make a late play for the top 6 against the 4th place Blue Revs. Kubota Spears 3rd versus the Dynaboars 7th. If Kubota Spears can sneak into one of those top 2 spots, they will get a first round bye in the playoffs. Bottom of the table, the D-Rocks, taking on newly 2nd on the table, the Saitama Wild Knights. Top of the table, Brave Lupus, taking on Honda Heat, who are sitting in 10th. The Eagles in 6th, hoping to hold on to that spot against Toyota Verblitz, who have just not been any good at all. Black Rams in 9th versus the Kobe Steelers 5th. Super Rugby Pacific, we see buys for the Blues, the Chiefs, and the Drua. Hurricanes are sitting in 8th, hoping a good home victory against the 4th place Waratahs will take them into the top 6. 5th versus 7th, we have the Brumbies hosting the Highlanders. Crusaders, can they make it to the top of the table with the Chiefs bye? They are in 2nd and taking on the bottom of the table Moana Pacifica in Christchurch. And it is 3rd versus 6th, an Aussie banger. Reds versus the Force. This one was 28-24 to the Reds in round 3. Major League Rugby Round 7, we have a bye for the Miami Sharks. It is RFC LA looking to keep on climbing, but they've got the second place in the East, Old Glory DC. Nola Gold, who have snuck out of the East top 4, taking on top of the East Chicago Hounds. In the MLR, we have the Western 2 versus the Western 1. This is the big one. This is the Houston Sabercats and San Diego Legion. 4 in a row versus unbeaten for the season. And third versus third in the two conferences as the Utah Warriors take on the New England Free Jacks. In Super Rugby Americas, Penarol have the bye, sitting on top of the table. Now we had 4th versus 6th as Dogos took on Tarukas, because this one actually happened a couple of days ago. Spoiler, Tarukas won 22-20. 2nd versus 3rd, Selknam versus Pampas. And the bottom of the table, Cobras, can they get their first victory over 5th place Iacare? Women's club games in Super Rugby Opiki, we have top of the table, Blues versus Matatu. If Matatu win this, then the Chiefs cannot make the final. In the other game, it is 4th versus 3rd, Poa versus the Chiefs. In Super W, as I mentioned earlier, the Drua have a bye. Top of the table, Waratahs against the winless Brumbies. And it is the Reds versus the Force, most likely the winner of this one. Oh no, not most likely. The winner of this one will get a home semi-final. Sevens is back. We are in Hong Kong for round 5 of the 7 series. There are 7 rounds. The last round will be a top 8 final. So far for the ladies, New Zealand and Australia have 2 event wins each out of the 4 and sit in 1st and 2nd place on the table. France is still in 3rd after 3 third places. For the men so far, Argentina sit on top after 2 event wins. Spain are in 2nd after 1 second place and 2 thirds. And Fiji and South Africa are 3rd equal with 1 event win each. Who is going to take it in Hong Kong? Probably New Zealand or Australia on the women's side. But the men's is very, very open. Alright, now let's get to our big 3 games for the weekend. If you've only got time to watch one, see one, follow one, whatever, make sure it's one of these guys. Our honourable mentions this week in Super Rugby Opiki, it is that top of the table clash between the Blues and Matatu. Most likely a preview for the final. This one was 28-7 to the Blues last time. In Super Rugby Americas, it is 2nd versus 3rd, Selknam versus Pampas. And in the Women's Six Nations, France versus Scotland, 2 undefeated squads. The loser of this one will have a hard time making it to the top of the table with England's dominance. Now our big 3 this week. Let's start in Major League Rugby. It is as the Cats take on the Legion. Houston versus San Diego. This is a top of the table clash in the Western Conference. Houston have had 4 wins in a row. San Diego are undefeated. In the URC, it is the Sharks versus Leinster. This is 4th versus 1st. This one's in Durban. Leinster just had their first loss in South Africa. Is South Africa a bogey place for them? Or have they bounced back since they got used to the beautiful South African climate? And in our final big 3 game of the week, we have, in the top 14, the bottom of the table clash, Vaughan versus Perpignan. The loser from this one may have a very, very tough time climbing out of that hole, and they may get the automatic relegation at the end of the season. A lot is riding on this one in Vaughan. Well, what a fantastic roundup that was. And that's enough for me this week. Everyone's sick around me. I've been a bit sick too. But you know what isn't sick? Rugby. But it is kind of sick, if you know what I mean. Yeah. If only the Blues could win. Anyway, from all of us here at Big Mike Sports, me, To all of you, my beloved listeners around the world, have a beautiful week and watch some beautiful rugby.